Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Rooney, publisher of the Revelstoke Current, and welcome to In Conversation, periodic discussion of all things political that appears on RCTV here in Revelstoke. And this morning I have Wayne Stetski, the New Democratic Party candidate in the upcoming federal election, and our MLA, no stranger to you, Macdonald. Welcome, Wayne. Good to see you.
It's lovely as always to be here.
So it's Canada Day, you're both in the parade. Well,
Yes,
you
and
got your candidate shirt on.
I'm attired, yeah. And as a campaigner, Wayne's attired as well.
Yeah. But how did you both end up being in the parade?
What I try to do is Canada Day. I go to different communities, so this will be my third time over the 10 years in Revelstoke, and I try to move around, and it's always special here. Like, Revelstoke does things very, very well, so it's a big parade, and then it's a lot of fun down at the park too. So even the weather today has been orange, so it's a perfect sunny day.
I have never seen a Canada Day in Revelstoke that isn't perfect weather-wise.
Yeah.
You might want to...
I know I've got jeans on.
You're going to cook.
I know.
You're going to cook. You're
I've got hiking pants on, so it shouldn't be too
marginally better.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hot out there.
It will be.
So Canada Day is a good opportunity to think about our country and where it's going. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. Number one thing I hear, quite frankly, going door to door, without getting too political, is that there needs to be a change in Ottawa. And I truly believe that. The reason I got involved was looking at where Canada has gone over the last few years. And in my view, a lot of the values that I have as a Canadian, I think most people have as Canadians, really have been challenged over the last few years. So what I hear from people is concern about everything from healthcare and making sure that it stays as universal healthcare. Our military, our veterans, so both the use of our military now and the way veterans are being treated once they come home. CBC, Canada Post, the list kind of goes on and on. So many things that for a number of us meant Canadian have been under attack, I guess is the word that I hear most often. And so that's one of the reasons why I got involved. And I want to thank you for being here today. Of course, as mayor of Cranbrook, I've been busy in Cranbrook the last few years, and we had a conversation, and I asked you, when is a great time to be in Revelstoke, and you said Canada Day. So I want to thank you for that invitation.
Yeah. How about you, Norm? What are your thoughts on a day like today?
Like with many people, Canadians love to travel and love to see different parts of the world. And as you know, I've spent 6 years in Africa, and it's not only exciting to see other countries, but it does give you a reminder of what's special about the country that you're from, Canada. We have a remarkably peaceful and free country where there's democratic opportunities, and it's got to be one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I mean, you look at Revelstoke, this place today, and you can't imagine a more beautiful setting. Fresh water, clean air. I mean, it's got everything in wonderful, healthy communities based around what Wayne was talking about, the ideas of equality, the fact that we look after each other with our healthcare system, the fact that we can converse without the government interfering in that conversation. All of those things you never want to take for granted. And people look to Canada and still see a country that is special in many, many ways, and we have to protect that and enhance it and look to the future in ways to make sure that we improve it.
Well, you should get a pretty good reception. People are always happy to see an MLA and any other political leader show up in a Canada Day parade. It doesn't happen every year, but you're a popular guy.
Oh.
You hope to be a popular guy. And to be fair, I mean, Revelstoke is larger than any city town. So
yeah, there's some real history here, and I think it goes back many years. But certainly Bill King and others really set a very solid foundation. But it's also a history of the railroad here and forestry workers. So there's a strong history in Revelstoke, and it's been a welcoming community to people of any political stripe, really, but it has been very, very strong for the NDP.
Well, let's move on and let's talk a little bit about a couple of things political. Number one is your campaign. The election campaign hasn't formally started yet. The rate has not dropped, but the smart politician doesn't wait for the rate to drop. So you've been out and you've been campaigning here. You've been in Cranbrook, of course, your hometown. And I gather you've also been in Nelson as well?
I've been in Nelson 3 times, Caslow twice, been in Selmo, been in Golden and Invermere and Fernie and Sparwood, Kimberley. So I've been active around the riding, which was my old region when I was manager and Minister of Environment. So for me, it's been great. It's like coming home for me to come back to Revelstoke and Nelson and places like that where I had offices previously, and to catch up with old friends. I actually lived in Revelstoke for a short time in the 1970s, working with Rev Glacier Park, and I brought my staff here for our annual outings as well when I was regional manager. So it's great to be out and around the region, and for me it's like going home with a different focus than, of course, when I was regional manager. But it's still all about public service and serving the people of the Kootenay.
It's also a bit about getting people to know who you are, because this is not like a municipal election.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know who you are, and ideally they will know by voting day.
Yeah.
What kind of differences are you noting between municipal campaigns that you've been used to and this one?
Well, a couple of things, I guess. First of all, there's an amazing network that the NDP have around the East and West Kootenays. And it's so nice to go into virtually any community and have a group waiting for you to get there, that are willing to help on the ground, help with door knocking, help with fundraising. So that's different. So I'm getting to meet a lot of new people, renew acquaintances with some old friends, but of course meet a lot of new people. So that's different. The other thing that's a little different is having a campaign captains. I have an East Kootenay captain and a West Kootenay captain who basically look after a lot of the logistics. So they will get things organized on the ground. And my job is to be there, show up, get involved in meet and greets and go door knocking and sort of build that one-on-one contact around the region. So there's some similarities, but the scope, of course, is quite different. But when you're on the ground, it's very much the same. It's going out and listening to people, finding out what their concerns are, and then making sure that ultimately you have the opportunity to deal with them.
When did you start door knocking?
Shortly after I started letter writing back in January, and door knocking in late March, I guess. My nomination meeting was the 15th of March when I became the official candidate for the NDP. So it started shortly after that. And I'll be doing it this afternoon in Revelstoke and tomorrow morning in Revelstoke as well.
Good. Yeah, I've always had a theory that the earlier candidates door knocking, the more doors he visits, the better off he's going to be on election day. And Norm, you certainly showed that in 2005.
Yeah.
I mean, he started in door knocking, November 2004?
Well, it was at least 6 months.
Yeah.
6
months of door knocking before decision day. And it was a handy win.
Well,
of course, you were helped by the fact that your BC Liberal opponent was an income.
The people do want to meet you. I think the face-to-face is important, and with NDP campaigns, they're always different. They're always up against opponents who will have far more money. So it's always a fact that you do have to use grassroots techniques. You're not going to afford billboards or things like that. You're going to have to go door to door and make use of the volunteers that are willing to come out and help. But door to door it's good on 2 levels, because it also reminds you throughout the work that you do that you've made a face-to-face promise with people, which is a very strong reminder of what you said you were going to do. So from that perspective too, I think it's really important.
I think so too.
Yeah, and when I encounter, there is some concern, I guess, around politicians in general that you run into. And when I run into that, I encourage all of them to hold me personally accountable, as we move forward. So, not shy about, making promises and then keeping those promises, and really want people to hold me accountable.
Well, money helps in a campaign, but it is not everything, and I think there are certain political parties and politicians who discover that truth to their dismay. Most people never meet people politically. They never meet a candidate face to face, and they can't imagine a situation where somebody's going to come and knock on their door. They're going to open the door, and there's going to be their MLA or potential MP, and they're going to recognize them, and that's going to carry that meeting around in their heads on voting day.
Right.
So that's going to resonate more. A quick ad gets on, an attack ad on TV, or personal encounter with somebody.
Well, I know it's still almost 4 months to the election, so what I encourage people to do when I'm going door to door is I give them my flyer and suggest they just keep me on their fridge for the next 4 months. And so it's also got the election day of October 19th on it, so just so they don't forget.
Well, good luck with that. I think you're going to do well. How well remains to be seen. It really depends on how well you motivate people to come out and vote. So we're going to have a lot of work on election day, getting people out.
And people will say, and Norm will know this very well, that it must be a tough business being in politics and being a politician. And my response to that is, if you truly like people, which I do, then it's not that hard a job, because people are really good. Going door to door, for example, there might be 3 out of 30 or 40 that will say, sorry, not interested, and close the door. But the rest of the people are very welcoming and receiving, and so I don't find that part of the job difficult at all. But it has to start with liking people, or else you're in politics for the wrong business.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But remember this: people can be fickle. That's something you always got to carry in the back of your mind, because you're only as good as the last promise you delivered on. And that's a little dismaying, but that's the way people are.
Right.
So, talking about people and how they are, the legislature.
Yes. So we're going back for a fairly rare summer sitting. It'll be, I think, 2 weeks starting in the middle of July, although it's not necessarily just 2 weeks, but I think the anticipation is it'll be 2 weeks, and it will be looking at 1 or 2 pieces of legislation around liquefied natural gas again. So that'll be interesting. As I say, it's kind of an odd time to sit. It may be that they want to avoid a fall sitting, but certainly any chance we get. There are some big issues. The issue that we'll probably push in question period will be around the health firings. 8 individuals were fired from the Therapeutics Initiative with no reason. The government lied about the fact that they asserted there was an RCMP investigation, and that wasn't true, and it hasn't been true for 2 years. So there's a number of questions that we have about what went on, and we need to push the government to have a public inquiry. I mean, a gentleman committed suicide because of what he was put through by the government, and there's a lot of questions about the attack on Therapeutics Initiative, which is, if people don't know, it's a government program based at the University of British Columbia that looks at the effectiveness of different drugs that the government is paying for. And the pharmaceutical industry has made no bones. They don't like it here. They don't want it in any jurisdiction. And it's something that saves the government money, but it also raises concerns about drugs. In fact, Therapeutics Initiative was one of the first that identified, I forget the product, but it was identified as causing heart disease, but it was first identified here, and then subsequently it was one that was removed from North American markets and world markets. So it is an effective, cost-effective program, but one that has been under attack by the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, and having failed to get rid of it by cutting its budget, I don't think it's a big leap to think that the firings of 8 individuals was linked to that. And while the Premier, Christy Clark, maybe couldn't have anticipated that someone would commit suicide, I think it's pretty clear that you would anticipate that you were ruining 8 careers. And so a lot of questions, a lot of things that simply haven't been answered that we're going to push a question period to get answers to. But very troubling for any government to do what looks like has taken place with these health plans. And at a personal level, 2 issues I want to deal with. First, just to push to get rid of Jumbo, the municipality of Jumbo Resort, just shut that down. That's been a huge waste of money, and put that to bed, and we'll hopefully use question period for that. And then also the zebra and quagga mussel question. I think that definitely the government should be doing more to safeguard British Columbia from that invasive species. And I know you're familiar with that, but it's just to not be far more vigilant than we are makes no sense to me at all. You see Alberta and other jurisdictions taking it more seriously. You look to Manitoba, where they regret terribly the fact that they just used temporary stations that they moved around and worked more rigorously.
Which is what we're doing.
Which is what we're doing. It's a huge mistake.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. I'm the director of the Invasive Species Society here in Revelstoke and for the Shuswap Columbia. So I have a real interest in that. And I think we need some real concerted action on that. And it's not just quagga mussels, though those are the sexy creatures that are on the list. But there are other things that are showing up here, things like giant hogweed and I don't know if you're familiar with that. It looks like cow parsnip, only it's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And it's extremely toxic. If you get any of its sap on your skin, it'll burn your skin. It's massive.
Yeah.
It'll blind you. So I can just see now when you have some kid get blinded by this stuff, and people gonna go, "Oh, I didn't know."
Well, it's awareness, right? As you know, the organization at Target does some incredible work. And but these aren't things that governments get to cut ribbons on or anything. But it's just good governance to put in place measures that are going to protect the ecosystem and the natural beauty that we have. But you have to consciously do it and apply resources and come up with a good sense in terms of how you can do it.
And the West Kootenays here, as you know, we're behind. I was district manager for parks for East Kootenays and the West Kootenays. So I can remember when I got involved in the West Kootenays, we got an amazing marine park system at Kootenay Lake. Going into this absolutely spectacular beach, blue sky bay, and the beach was covered in algae. And I said to my staff, this is not on. Like, at least in a provincial park, you've got a little higher potentially. And so there was a great deal of work over the last few years in the West Kootenays as well. It started out behind a lot of invasive weeds, as you know, are already in place. But it'll take a concentrated effort over many years, but we have to do it. The ecosystems that we have is too valuable, both from a terrestrial and an aquatic level, to not pay a lot of attention to results.
And yet somehow I don't get the feeling that it's not a big priority in Victoria.
It's not. It's despite the good work that you've done at the local levels and with the Invasive Species Council. They come and they see MLAs. I just don't think it's fully understood. And part of the reason it was my critic role with Flinro, and so I had people that come and brief me on things that I should be asking questions about. So 2 or 3 years ago, we started to ask questions, and then my brother works for fisheries in Manitoba, and my parents live in Gimli, which is one of the locations where the zebra mussel is now. So I've had that exposure to it as well, and I've seen what government does. They wouldn't use people on the weekends to save money, right? And sat the machines, and of course all the traffic's on the weekends, right? For boat traffic, and then once it's in and it's too late to do anything, all of a sudden there's millions of dollars to experiment with things that they're pretty sure are not going to work, but just to give the impression of doing something. And I think it just makes far more sense to be vigilant to begin with. We have 20 entry points to British Columbia. It's easy to train people to use this at each entry point. The machinery you need to clean a boat is not expensive, and the locations are not complicated to set up. You can set it up and set up the system pretty easily, and you should do it. It's just one of those common sense things. For Seaford Cloggable, just one of these. The oceanography, they estimate $40 million damage. If they get that for BC Hydro, they save $10 million and $1 million a year if they do damage. In the Great Lakes, they estimate the impact of the Seaford Cloggable missiles is $6 billion over around 30-40 years. It's maybe longer than it's been there.
Yeah, once they're there, you can't get rid of
You
them.
can't get rid of them. And that's just financial cost. That's not that you have changed the beaches, you change the ecosystem. What does it do to salmon bed? Like, there's all sorts of questions that you don't want to find the answers from experience.
Funny you should bring up salmon. We're discussing, there's been some discussion here lately of possibility of reintroducing salmon into the Columbia River. As far as all the way up to the source of the canal flats.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Have you given any thought to that?
I have actually. I represented the East Kootenays on the Columbia River Treaty Local Government Committee for the last 3 years, and we held a lot of public meetings. We met with First Nations as well. Bringing salmon back is certainly one of the top priorities for First Nations and for people with a real interest in seeing us return a bit to our historical roots, which is having salmon come right up through to Columbia Lake. It was interesting because when we put out our committee report, the local government committee report, we included the restoration of salmon back into the river system. First Nations have been pushing for that. It's only the provincial government. Our report is much like the provincial government report because we work closely with them throughout the process, with the exception of salmon. They would not say making salmon return to the Columbia River system would be a priority.
Why not?
Well, when we've asked that question, they said, well, if the Americans bring them to the Canada-US border, then we'll have a look at bringing them to.
They're already all the way up to Lake Falls.
But it's been curious because even from a political perspective, I really don't understand why they wouldn't come on board with something that's that important, particularly for First Nations, right from the get-go.
Yeah. Like I say, it's been something that certainly when you go to Invermere, they have a salmon festival there where they're trying to push the idea of getting salmon back into the region. It's what the province says, and is that the original dam that wiped out the salmon migration was pre-treaty. So having said that, I think it doesn't preclude doing things, and they often will say that it's complicated, it's expensive, but then as you spend more time, people come up with ideas that sound like they could work. So let's say when you're young, put somebody on the moon, you can figure out this, and I think that already as people turn their minds to it, they come up with ideas that they could just work. It would be amazing to have salmon back on the Columbia system. Yeah.
Can you imagine what that day would be like if you're standing on the shores of Columbia Lake and it's the first salmon coming back up to the lake? That'd be magic.
Because you read David Thompson's journals and he talks about the salmon. Yeah, I mean it would be an amazing day, and it's not beyond the scope of human ingenuity, I don't think. So, we'll see.
Is anything education come up on the list?
It's possible that they did put forward a bill at the end of the session that they possibly will use in the first 2 days, and the bill makes it so that local communities can collect property tax on private schools. So I think that may come up, and the intention is to see it as a divisive issue. That clearly we would be against that, and they would forward. I guess there's some politics in that, but an awful lot of communities already don't have property tax on private schools already because they're often associated with the Catholic Church or some sect like that, which they don't have. But I don't know, Cranbrook had a private school.
We've got a couple of private schools. They're associated with churches.
The churches that don't pay tax, but it would be political, and I don't think the fundamental problem with our education system is that they're underfunding in areas that they simply shouldn't. The government should be in charge on making sure the class composition is something that works for each classroom, and they should be identifying students when they're young in terms of the resources that they need. And they're not doing that. That's a problem. We've got to educate children. That's one of the fundamental things that we should be looking at. And I think the child care issue is as well, having good quality child care. So I think better
Affordable child care, which is of course one of the main platform planks for the NLP is that $15 a day national child care program. Again, when I go door to door and talk to young mothers, they're really excited about that. It's such a financial burden on families right now. I talked to a young mom named Fernie, and she was paying $1,575 a month daycare. I talked to one at Vandermeer, and she was paying $1,750 a month in daycare. So you have to have a pretty good job, which at the minimum wage, probably the minimum wage that we have in British Columbia, it's pretty hard to make that much money just to cover the cost of childcare. So this $15 a day is really paying for people.
I can see where that would resonate.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys win. Didn't that deliver? That'd be a challenge, I think, in and of itself.
It will all be costly. Care costs of rent drops. It's been interesting because I've been asking, I'm new to the business of running federally, and so I've asked, why don't we have the entire platform out there at a cost of already? And the answer is, well, no party will do that until the rent drops. They don't want to, in essence, I guess, have all the excitement go out a little early as part of the campaign.
I remember in the election in '97, the Reform Party, the Liberal Party, platform in advance of even the Liberal Party and put it up there. Platforms you want to have, force rain on those things at the last minute. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
I think so. Looking very positive now. I think we must have carries. I think acknowledged as one of the strongest opposition leaders that the country has seen, and I can anticipate that perform just as well as Prime Minister. So I agree with that. That's really positive, and I think people are just ready for a change. I think there's just.
How long have we had the Conservative in power? 15 years?
It's going to be 10
It's 10 years. Yeah, of course, with the majority in the last 4. And that's when a lot of the really big changes have occurred in the last 4 under the majority.
Well, that's what happened when you get a majority government. Minorities are good insofar as there tends to be a lot more collaboration in bills and policies. Once any party gets a majority with regard to that, it's carte blanche to do with voter. It doesn't matter what flavor the political party is either. They're all like that.
In the federal scene, especially, you often have, like the Conservatives, probably about 35% of the vote because it's often a three-way split. So it's at least provincially, you'll see provincial government can have over 50% of the vote very often. But federally, to act like you've given a mandate to you to act like almost like a dictatorship just seems completely wrong. You often are representing the Conservatives 34-35% of the vote. So to then take that as a mandate and they misstep. I think they'll say 51 is a huge misstep even with their base. It allows government to go right into places that just personal.
Share your information around 17 different agencies. They have a lot of concern on the street about that. particularly if you value privacy. Many of us.
Well, it comes down to national security. I'm not one, well, you've had experience in living in a country that had less than perfect security. You know, it's any country that has a terrorism problem, it boils down to what kind of intelligence can you get your opponents.
But in the end, it comes down to how far you're willing to go in terms of compromising other rights and freedoms. And that's really the issue. There was another article out of the Globe and Mail last week where they managed to obtain some documents that were confidential until recently, where even the agencies themselves that were involved in doing this have said what we need is the authority to do better within our existing legal framework. They didn't need them involved. So more and more it looks like politics rather than actual security.
Everyone's going to play that big role?
Yes, yeah, I do. Again, just talking to people around the riding. Again, when I go door to door, the number one phrase I hear is that Stephen Harper has to go. That doesn't mean they're necessarily voting for me or not, but there's a lot of concern. And a number of people have said during Bill C-51, I used to vote Liberal. I'm not going to vote Liberal. I'm going to vote NDP because of the party's stand on C-51, and the same thing with a number of conservatives. That they, based on what's happened there, can't support the conservatives anymore.
That'll be interesting. We should probably hope that there's going to be any kind of terrorist outbreak in this country because that will change people's minds in a jam.
But there's a libertarian school, I think, in the group in terms of when you talk to people, this goes way back when reform was just starting, much of the opposition to gun control was that idea that there would be people knowing what you had in your house and things like that. Like there was an awful lot of people in this area just think that they have an area that's their business. Their emails, their phones, their personal information is personal, and I think that's part of some of the reaction to Bill C-51. It's just it's an overstep. It's too intrusive, and there's I think plenty of reason why one would think that it's going to be misapplied against environmental groups and other groups that irritate the government, but truly are not a security threat. And if one was dealing with security, there are plenty of opportunities for the security apparatus to work under the rules that are here. So
I don't see it as far as that's a little bit paranoid. But let's see what happens. A, with the election, and B, with this all plays out. I suspect that whoever forms the next government, if it's not the Conservatives, you're going to discover there are probably very compelling reasons for not feeling
So the other rumor I hear, which needs to be dispelled, is that the NDP, if elected federally, will bring back the long gun registry. We will not bring it.
Really? You heard that from people? I haven't heard that here.
I hear it in fish and game shops. When I was in Preston the other day, the fellow I chatted with there said, even our supplier tells us to be cautious about voting NDP because they're going to bring back the long gun registry. And I said that was just unequivocal, not the case. People need to understand that. It's just not on.
Well, I would agree. I think that's just, it's done. It had its day. It failed miserably, and it's gone.
It's gone.
And there are enough New Democrats who are from rural areas, as you are, that understand that, you know what, it is not a panacea to urban area.
There's a number of MPs that close to the MPs, like Nathan Cullen, I think Alexander represented their ridings. There was just no interest. There just wasn't support for it. There never really was.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here this morning. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Happy Canada
Day.
Day.
Always good to see you.
Good to see you guys too. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings to an end this edition of In Conversation. We'll see you again soon. That was good.